Good evening, and thank you so much for attending tonight's Transportation on Tap. This is Go New Haven Go's second Transportation on Tap. Back, and thank you to Bar for hosting. Give a round of applause to Bar. Kit is in the green, and Kayla Sabra is walking around in a tank top. I don't see her anywhere. So this is slightly informal, other than the fact that people up here have microphones, and we hope that you listen to them, not yourselves. But don't hesitate to keep ordering local food and the local beer here, and keep frequenting their business. So welcome again to Transportation on Tap. My name is Doug Houseladen. I serve Mayor Harp as the Director of Transportation, Traffic, and Parking. We are here hosted by Go New Haven Go. Go New Haven Go, if you haven't heard of it, is a coalition of partners: Yale Office of Sustainability, CT Rise, CT Transit, Transportation, Traffic, and Parking, New Haven Leon Sister City Project, and Park New Haven. We have a vision of a more livable, vital New Haven, where everyone, regardless of income, ability, and neighborhood, can safely play, live, work, and learn. Our mission is to promote health and well-being across the region by advancing safe, cost-effective, and convenient transportation for getting into and around New Haven. Go New Haven Go has a lot more stats. Can we just all imagine that I read this? And then go to our website, goNHGo.org, and fill out the rest from there. Thank you, that'd be great. Tonight, we're going to be moderating a panel hosted by the venerable Paul Bass from the New Haven Independent. Hi, Paul. Sela Mascara from NeighborWorks New Horizons. Ms. Astrid Farwell, Executive Director of the New Haven Urban Design League, and the Honorable Senator Gary Winfield from Connecticut Senate. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Mr. Paul Bass.
Thanks, Doug. A quick question. How many people are driving home? We won't look at big names. How many people are walking home? How many people are biking home?
I'm taking the bus!
I'm going there too, but I don't know if the bus can be running out of
The B.
The B, yeah, if we're lucky. And is anybody ride sharing? All right. So I think the reason we're gathering is because Doug and the city of New Haven and so many people in this room are on a quest. And that is to up those numbers, except for the people who are driving. And to make it possible so that it makes sense to do something other than drive. I think everybody here knows that Go New Haven Go just last fall had this competition to get businesses, to get people to find alternatives for their employees to driving along to work. And that now Doug's group is putting an application in for a Smart City grant. And here's the goal, that we go from a city where 70% of the people currently drive along to work, to a city where 70% of the people instead bike, walk, ride share, or take the bus. So let's talk about all those things tonight, including buses. We have a state senator here whose government makes laws for it and gives a budget for it, oversees the buses. So you can take a flag for that. Encouragement. Gary Winfield, Connecticut Transit runs our bus system. And the NAACP had a study in conjunction with Data Haven last year that said that 70% of the jobs that New Haveners can get require at least an hour and a half bus ride to get to and from. Even if they're a couple miles away. I can tell you something, take the bus a lot. Sometimes just going 2 miles can be an hour and a half. And then this study actually argued that the leading cause of chronic unemployment, underemployment in this area is the lousy bus system. Do you agree with that, Gary? You live in Hallville, you help make the laws for the state system. Is the bus system working? If not, what needs to change?
Total IT failure, I'm sorry about that. In my part-time, I actually am an AV specialist.
Okay, yeah. Do I agree that the bus system is not working? I agree that it doesn't work well for many of the people in the neighborhood I live in. I don't know too much about other people's neighborhoods, but where I live over in Hallville. If you want to, I would assume that it doesn't work well for a lot of people. I take the bus sometimes when possible. The way the system is designed, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. I was just saying to Paul before this started that I grew up in New York City where transfers actually mattered. I don't know what you do with the transfer industry in New York. If you have to go back down to the home, which is down here, well, the bus is kind of made up. You can't, at other points in the city, transfer to another bus. I don't know what the point is. And I was thinking about a young man who lived in my house, and it wasn't within making, but if I jump in my car to go to the mall, for instance, right, it takes me about, depends on how I drive, but it takes me 20 minutes or so. But just to get downtown takes perhaps longer than that from where I live. I can walk downtown in about 25 minutes. So I don't see the system as a system that works well for people. And I think whoever is tasked with designing the system has to think about a system that would work better. And I think more people would avail themselves of the bus than those who absolutely need to be on the buses.
So now the city of New Haven, Doug's department, is involved with the state in $1 million study of how to improve mass transit. Bus is a big part of that. A lot of what I think they've been hearing, a lot of what we heard in a series of articles in The Independent, is that the hub and spoke system needs to be re-examined, where all the buses go green in and out. That the hours, the schedules are geared to when most people went to work early and came home early. You can't really go out at night and expect to take a bus home. That even if you want to come home from work, if you're not getting out of work at 4:30, for instance, the Q bus on the west side of town, they stop having their rush hour schedule at 5:40 p.m. and they stop running altogether at 6:55 p.m. So I think a lot of what we're hearing is hub and spoke and change the schedules, and then also a lot of jobs are in the suburbs now. And that, for instance, we interview people who try to go West Haven to North Haven for a job. They can't even do it on Sunday. This can't be done. And you see the will to do that in the state, including spending money on that.
You're talking about money
I
today.
think the bus riders have to go to Capitol, you can go to poor people ride the bus. And we feel, Gary, that it's the poor people ride the bus and there's no pressure. I mean, if you think how often the DOT, Department of Transportation Chief and the governor, including today, have come down over and over again talking about trains. Look, we're only going to Fairfield County on trains. They never, ever in 5 years have come down to do a press conference and debate about a bus. Is that because it's black and brown people who ride a bus and make a lot of money?
Well, you don't want to say yes to that. I mean, listen, politics is about the ability to sort of force upon people to do something. It's not just, I mean, we hope it is. We hope that it's, you send good people into a space and they do good things. It doesn't really work that way. And people who don't have money and people of color in general aren't people who can exert force upon a political system. And so oftentimes the issues that are resident in the community don't get spoken about, and even when they get spoken about, I know when we speak about them, you're often kind of labeled as crazy, to be honest with you. Or if you're not labeled as crazy, you just shut it off to the side. And so that's the way it works. And this is in particular why this issue of transportation can't be an either or thing. It can't be bicycles or buses. It's got to be an issue of transportation working for the city, because that brings all of you into the conversation to push on that system.
All right, well, let me do a reality check here. Seal Mascara from New Horizons. Is it realistic? Like, you guys, I'm sorry, neighborhoods. You guys do a lot of housing. You build housing in the Hill and Fairhaven. Let's say, first of all, the people who work for you, rent from you, they generally take the bus.
I would say that about 20%, about 50% have a car. And we also serve the suburbs, so we have people that live in the area. And
So that's
it's
affordable housing.
affordable housing.
Now, I think it's once an hour it goes to Grandford, right up till about 6 or 7 p.m.
Exactly. And it's what you said. I mean, it's very difficult for somebody to take a bicycle to work. I have a resident, she was talking to me about 2 hours taking the bus. She lives in Hampton and she works at Lowe's. It would take you like 10, 15 minutes, but 2 hours because she has to take 2 buses. She has to go to New Haven and then she has to go
So it's from Hampton to Lowe's.
to Lowe's.
So if you just jump on a map and hop over I-91.
Yes. Exactly.
So that's the hub and spoke issue.
Yes, so then you imagine a single mom with 2 kids. How you can drop the kid to the daycare run while she has to be at work at 9 o'clock, the earliest, and then come back. In an hour, 2 hours, you do mission work, you get fired, and then you don't have a job.
Now, you talk about single moms here. I know that for a lot of people, it became easier for me to take the bus when my kids got older. What if you're someone who has a job and you gotta pick up your kid at daycare, ready for school, you gotta do grocery shopping? Is it realistic when you make take buses to do all that?
No, it's not. Our families, single moms, we have about probably 50% single moms, and it's very hard because they have to travel, whether it's West Haven to other towns to do their job and to come back with their kids.
So do you think there's a limit to how much we should be looking at buses as transportation solutions?
You know, what I believe is that we all need options because we have people, we also have single people in our housing and they do take the bus. We do have people that have jobs and they are near to the housing. But we also have the other population that they do get jobs outside of the neighborhood and they need more flexibility. Now, I'll tell you a funny thing. My ex-husband works in Bridgeport. He crashed his car and he doesn't want to buy a car. So how does he get to work? He lives in Milford. He rides his bike for 10 minutes to the train station. He takes the bus on the train. He goes to work, to Bridgeport, and he rides his bike to work. And he does vice versa. It's affecting me. I'm like, please find a car. Because we have a daughter. And I'll say, my daughter goes to school in Milford, so I'll take her. I have to go from New Haven to Beverly for the Haven Ballet. And then I have to wait for him until 7 o'clock p.m. And he is waiting for her at home. And he said, I have to stay in New Haven. Will you please buy a car? He's refusing to buy a car.
You want to raise some money tonight? I want to press Nancy Farwell on this. Before we start the panel tonight, Nancy said we all kind of agree about this, right? I mean, let's face it, most of us want to yeah, we should have more buses. Yeah, we should be able to have more bike lanes. We should have a big easy, nothing's a car. But how realistic is this sometimes the answers about how much mass transit we can support? Is it a chicken and egg situation where we're a smaller city, you know, 120,000 people, 30,000 in our general area. When you were on the radio, WNHH with Matthew Nelson, the economic development administrator, we were talking about the opening of Lexion. Okay, they have 1,000 employees in it today. They just opened a college team. That's great. They redid the roads there, and you and a lot of other people were critical of how they still redid those roads to be geared to the car. You said to Matthew, why don't we have more bus service there, more trains to go there? You said there are shuttles, so they're going to get you some things in the Shawnees and get a shuttle over. Your response was that's privatized transit, I think it's mass transit. And then his argument was that we're not Boston. We don't have 500,000 people, we're not going to have 1 million people. There really aren't enough human beings to support enough bus service or else we would have it. Is he right?
So maybe I'll take a step back to the question that you asked Gary about state funding for Connecticut Transit. It's a stepchild within Connecticut DOT. It's a giant budget that DOT has, and most of it is for road building and road repair. And the agency is mostly staffed by highway engineers. And that's an agency that developed to serve the car and not to run a transit system. We had a transit system that was privately operated, and then Connecticut Transit eventually took it over when it was basically dying away. But the city had a very effective transit system back at the turn of the century through the 1950s, when we were approximately the same size as we are now.
We're about 160,000.
And now we have a much bigger metro region that is within reach of transit. Hampton, East Haven, West Haven, North Haven, that all can get into the city. I think that we have to go to really major policy issues. Where do we spend the money? I think that the state has said a lot about wanting to support a transit future, but where is the money going? Instead of building, let's say, a new biotech building next door to our train station, the state is looking to spend its own money on a new parking garage that will only induce traffic coming into the city. That isn't transit-oriented development. Transit-oriented development is putting homes and offices
I
and
just want to get to
businesses.
that a little bit down the road about development. But how
but you
about
want-
buses? Are there enough people to ride the buses? If we had a B bus and a Q bus, D bus running
You-
all the time.
You will get to that if you plan properly. So for instance, there's a recent study that came out that showed that the main thing that determines whether someone gets on a bus or Shoreline East is, does the transit work at their destination? So imagine this, that around the hospital area, you can take Shoreline East in, or you live in East Rock, and you can just move straight across town on one of the buses, get to the medical area, and at the place where you get off, you can walk across the street and pick up a cup of coffee, drop your kid off at daycare, all in one place, and then walk to your job within a block or so. So that everything is very convenient in one place, so that it isn't like you're a person that has to go in one direction to leave a child at daycare, another direction for other.
And obviously, the argument you always hear is that we subsidize car travel.
Right.
Why would we subsidize mass transit more?
Or why don't we subsidize real TOD development? To take another one step back about, can people get to jobs? One of the things that we do, and this is highlighted in research done by Norman Garrick at the Yukon Transportation Institute, is that there is a relationship between the development of parking garages and cities not only losing tax base, but jobs. So if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. How many jobs does an 800-car parking garage provide versus an office building the same size on that site?
Okay,
So-
let me pull that question
Yes,
over to Gary.
yes,
So
yeah.
Gary, you often sit down discussions about how to develop a project, and one of the issues is, as Nancy just brings up, if you put too much parking, that encourages people to drive, and it can suck the life out of the street. But do you think it's realistic when you look at, let's say, state-funded project like the Coliseum project, where we're downtown, to have no parking, a little parking? Do you think that some people are just going to want to drive and you have to include it? Or do you think that Anderson has a point that if you put in the right incentives, you design it the right way, and you build a project that people aren't, you don't have to add parking to it, you know, it's already it doesn't go so far.
So, let me start by saying I was interested in what we were going to talk about tonight because I had no real clue. Except that there was transportation. I think that you can have the building that Patrice is talking about, you can have parking, but you don't have to necessarily, I mean, there are ways to design it where they're, one is incorporated into the other, and therefore you don't just have a space with the big parking garage. And I think that deals somewhat with the issue of having the parking garage taking up the whole space that you have building on. And I know that, I don't know that much about how these things are done, but I know that that's done in some places. And I think it is, to some degree, what Andrew is talking about, where I think we have to think about what it is to design these things in such a way that all of these things are part of the conversation.
Well, the state funded, for instance, Route 34 West. That's the project in front of Queer High School. And Anstis and a lot of other activists felt that it was too geared to get into the car, and we were repeating all the state. The Harvard administration inherited the project at the last stage, and was arguing about whether to continue with it. There's a Rite Aid that is suburban style, right in the corner of Orchard and Route 34 West. And one question I had, is again, we're all agreeing here, right? One question I had as a skeptic, my own position, was, let's say you're someone from Fairhaven who's going to work that Rite Aid shift till 11 p.m. Or you're someone from a single parent from Fairhaven who's going to work at 1 p.m. and pick up your kid. Is it realistic that's really mass transit, or should we have parking for that person?
Well, at the Rite Aid, as you say, if someone from Fairhaven that works a late shift, there's no way to move around.
So is your answer to be them doing the bus, or do you think you need that parking for that person?
My answer was that they passed a plan they should have passed, but the value of that land to the city, which is desperate for tax base expansion, to have room for more businesses and more people, that it was just thrown away.
Well, what about Rite Aid? We're gonna have a drugstore, we're making part of us, we have leverage, we have a design. Should we be designing a parking lot for so that people can go there and work there, or what do you think?
Well, I feel that if we can start moving in a proper direction, my guess is that despite the bad decisions of the city, that the economy is moving towards cities, and that all of that really low quality development will not be all for this world. That it's a temporary sort of structure, and that we still have a chance if there's proper leadership to make that land more valuable. And one of the ways of making it more valuable is to put good transit through the zone. There was a very good plan that was put together by all three neighborhood groups that work with us and other nonprofits. And it was set aside, and the city wasn't willing to negotiate about it. And went back to an old, very retrograde plan that basically been in the works for 20 years ago. So if you have a drive-through drugstore in a no man's land, and the old bus goes by on one side, but really not the other, yeah, but in a way, that's obvious. And it's not being.
Well, another idea that came up is people felt that they should have parking at, let's say, the Yale Hall or in Longworth, and then have people drive in there and take shuttles to get them to Haven or for development. And I wonder sitting there, like I said, I think someone coming in to New Haven for work would be willing to park at the edge of town and take a shuttle in, we can get in too many steps.
If it's a single person, I think they could. If it's a person, as I said, with kids, then it's more difficult and challenging.
And then, Gary, before I ended up on the buses, we were talking to Frank Lobo from City Point before, and he was suggesting that the answer to improving bus service is something called micro or mini buses. I don't know a lot about that. But his idea was that if they were much smaller and just running all the time, then they'd be available more, people would be more willing to take them, and you wouldn't have this phenomenon of worrying about running too many routes with the bus not having many passengers. Since I believe, it does correct me if it's wrong, I believe the fares pay about 30 to 40% of the cost of the ridership. And you could,
Yes. unless someone else tells you otherwise, Phil Fry.
so
Like
Gary,
22, right? About 22.
and it would probably be lower for the microbus. So what about, does the microbus idea make sense?
Wait, I haven't done this all the way through, I just heard it 15 years ago. But it made a lot of sense, and it dealt with, at least the way that the conversation went on, it dealt with the issue that I was jokingly talking about, with the transfers, how it doesn't make sense, you can only go just along that spoke. But I want to take a step back for a second, because I think where Andrew started off talking about how we agree, but I think when the agreement begins to break down to the question you guys asked, right? So we may be talking about a Rite Aid, but you may be talking about other jobs at some point in the future where, I may be there later at night, and I need to have a way to move it. This is not a question of what we should be doing, it's a question of what do we do inside of a given situation.
So if you keep talking,
Given the situation, I need to be able to work. And if I'm coming from a place where I might work on a schedule that I don't want to work in a place I don't necessarily want to work, how do I move around the city? And that does make us wrestle with questions we don't otherwise want to wrestle with, right? Is the bus going to be operated? You can't. I mean, look, we have a great downtown, a vibrant downtown. There's some people who can't participate in a nightlife
streets might have been rolled up for those.
And if you live on the west side on the Q, according to the Connecticut Transit, the day ends at 6:55 PM and Sunday doesn't exist.
Right, and I think those things are important, you know, and so, but back to particularly the people who have jobs, right? The question has to be, is there gonna be a bus that moves? Is there gonna be a place to park? And it can't be a conversation for those people about what we should have done. But there's a lot of stuff we should have done, but they're in that situation, what are we gonna do about those people?
The other question I have is, we in this room might all agree with how we would love things to be built all around mass transit, I know I do. What about when we negotiate with people who are gonna build and they have to get financing for these projects? And the assumptions that are made when you're going to get financing is that we live in a world where most people try. How do you think we should approach that as a city if we do want to get, let's say, a building project built, either a building or an industrial west, and the only way or our opportunity is to go to the plan, and the way, because the project is the ultimate new urbanist project, is the old Coliseum site. And we still haven't seen that being built. We're promised over and over that the financing is going to be fine and fully lined up. But if you really look at the one project in town that has the most perfect transportation and this vision that we all embrace, that's the one that's not getting the money. And I have a sneaky suspicion that it's because it was designed to say what the activists or we in town want to be, rather than emergency funding.
I haven't heard anything about the Coliseum site development other than it's making good progress.
But they
So-
said that over and over, and there were some legitimate
Yeah.
problems about Street Street. But I talked to another developer who's familiar with that project. He said the reason that's never going to get its money, and maybe for hopes not true, the reason we get nowhere is because it was designed for you guys. We said we want to have all this new urban stuff in it, we want to have here for the walk,
So
and the
let's
pedestrian
just, I hope to, anyway, set that aside because it's speculative and the people involved aren't here, but just to put a, take it with a grain of salt for the moment. But I think that your question goes to some basic work that the city and the state need to do in terms of governance. The state has been looking to create a transportation authority, and they tried last year with a bill that wasn't very well written. It was basically a parking garage construction authority, and it died. And I hope that the state will reconsider that and look into how to create an authority of this sort that really is based on doing developments with strong TOD principles around Connecticut's rail stations. We do need that. And then there's an equivalence that we need here in New Haven. The mayor's transition report 2 years ago said that they would look at revamping our parking authority to become a transportation authority so that we would have an authority that could do bonding, funding, and planning for really every mode of transportation. And you could look at some of our current garages that do make money and look at ways that that money can be put into multimodal development. We also need to have the state create law. It was something that didn't make its way through the legislature last year. I think it just got lost, a little land in the hills, not that it was rejected. To give towns and cities the ability to create transit districts, planning districts. And one of the things you can do, and this is something that Cambridge used to good effect, is that you create a funding source to create the transit. So let's say a developer comes in, they, based on current zoning, it might need an 800-car garage. You say, we're developing the transit system to serve the development and expand it. We think that instead of spending $30 million on that garage, you can build fewer parking spaces and put $2 million into the transit system. And so developers can still build their garage if they wanted, but most people would say, well, I can save that parcel, I can put another use of the garage. I can put maybe 28 million back in my pocket, and we actually have a really functional system.
And you talk about what is our infrastructure. I just want to get back
And
to
what
one
is our governance? we don't have the governance tools in place. And I think that the park administration is off to a very good start. If you look at their transition report, it was looking exactly at these governance tools that can really unlock the potential.
I want to finish one more bus question before we move on to bikes, which I think is a success story. What about Yale? So I mean, I've visited them in New York, and there they pay everybody to ride the bus, the Residential City bus. That's the students, the faculty. So the bus runs really regularly. You can take the bus in Ithaca, and they have big bills. That's a good idea. In New Haven, we have this privatized system with the Yale shuttle. It doesn't even go out to the west side of town. And if you go to Yale, or if you like them, look like you might go to Yale, they ride you for free all around 10 or 12 hours. And otherwise, there aren't enough people left to support the bus system to make Connecticut Transit bus system to make it a system of choice rather than last resort. Do you think, or maybe you don't even want to pipe into this? Has there been any effort to talk to Yale about, and that's just as unrealistic as some of the other stuff we talked about, where instead of having their own privatized system that trains all the demand out of the bus system, that we have them pull Cornell in New York and have incorporate their riders into the bus.
I think what we've been seeing in New Haven is a lot of systems and a lot of investments, and we've already started through the Parking Authority and through economic development and a TOD grant funded by the state of Connecticut. We've already started having the 10 major employers meet in a roundtable. And in our first roundtable, the first thing that almost everybody said was, who has a shuttle system? Everyone raised their hand. Who thinks it's an efficient spending of money? No one raised their hand. And the question for all of us, and it's about to become a reality in April, is how do we provide the same service in a public system as they have in a private system? And that same service is all about real-time arrival information and reliability and service reliability.
So partly, though, that I think New Haven's lobbying is going to enable buses with GPS, so you can go on your smartphone, whatever it is. But will Yale ever be willing to not control it? Will they ever be willing to be part of the public system so we can have enough demand?
I believe they will if we can provide the same service. There's nowhere in the mission of Yale that says create, preserve a transit system. No, it's create, preserve, and disseminate knowledge. And nowhere in that mission does it talk about getting your students from A to B. And so that's really...
But isn't it chicken and the egg? Because there are people who are out of the system, you don't have the people who desire to provide the service they want. You don't think they just want to control their own private system?
I think in 2 months we're going to find out a lot more once the state unveils our real-time, new fare boxes, real-time GPS in our buses. And I think maybe the heart of that question might be the heart of the topic tonight.
Excellent, thank you, Doug. I want to switch to a success. Oh, yeah, switch my speak to that.
So, in terms of the multiple private shuttles and public system, it especially affects the west side of the city because there's many people that can get on the Yale shuttles from all over
Well,
the
many
east
white
side.
people or else Yale employees.
Yeah, and get to jobs at the hospitals, but there's very poor transportation options for people that live in the west side area to get in the other direction. So that's a very good illustration of a separate and unequal system. And I don't think it was intentionally done. When Route 34 ripped through the city, it set the west side off. And the intention was to build parking garages and highways and support commuters from out of town. And the west side of our city was just basically forgotten. But it's particularly hard for people that live in the Hill to get downtown, whether it's to follow a street, to walk, to bike, or to pick up a bus. And if we can get to a universal system where you just have one pass and you can get on any public transportation, it would open up the system for everyone.
What a good idea. Steele, you have a point.
Just want to go back to parking and developments. And we could actually get away with about 50% of what we are required by the city. And this is just as an example of the loans that we have in the families that do have cars and what troubles me personally is that if we are in the neighborhoods, people need to have access to parking if their friends are gonna go on visits, so we have to have that. So not to eliminate, to probably reduce the requirements, but people in the neighborhoods, they should have parking spaces for their cars. In the downtown, people has more resources, they're professionals, they pay a parking garage, even if you take the bus here and there. you
Now
just
we're
use the
seeing a
car.
fight for spaces in the Hill where we had an article on Eastern Rex and the Independent where the people who live there actually going out the street and questioning the Gale neighbor employees who all day park in the spaces. They can't park near the house and come home. But then Yellow Haven says we're offering them all these programs where they can ride share, they can take the bus, they can park in our lots. And so we don't want to pay the money to park in our lots, and it's just not convenient for me. What do you think the answer to that is?
People have limited resources, and this is what we don't really pay attention to. In the neighborhoods, people are making about 40% of the area median income. When we open a development, we have hundreds of people coming, and they cannot even afford our rents. People from New Haven, from the Hill, from Fairhaven. So that's the reality. A lot of poor people that are working minimum wages, and they're trying to make it. So of course, something that is simple like a $10 for a parking space, it's gonna be expensive.
This is a success story. So in the last bunch of years, as seen by the people here tonight, I think there's been a real constituency in Haven, a politically powerful constituency for bicycles. We've gotten bike lanes, we've gotten a law passed for vulnerable users, there's a lot of work left to go. And one thing I want to ask you about is unintended consequences. So I bike a lot. And the first thing I noticed when we got the bike lanes is they're not separated from the rest of the street. And one day I was going down Goff Street and a bus driver was honking his horn at me, getting really angry at me. And I was asking why you're honking at me. He said, I don't want to run you over, bro. And I said, well, I'm in a bike lane. He said, he said, but I'm allowed to ride on the street. He said, no, you need to be on the sidewalk. Because he said, well, they put those bike lanes up on Orange Street. So that means if it's not a bike lane, you can't ride on the street. And of course, they open the doors with the bike lanes. I wonder whether stuff like bike lanes might have made it harder for people to bike into Haven Run. Anyone want to speak to that question? Okay, what do you think?
There are bike lanes that are going straight, and they have to take the cars have to take a right turn. The bike lane will be right between what was a straight go lane and a right go lane. And the cars will have to turn right to the bike lane to make a right turn on the street. The bike lane goes straight through, the bike lane goes to the right. That seems wildly dangerous, and I don't think it's the easy way to do it. I find that I'm still trying to stop as if I'm on the 8 lane one right now.
Well, that survey, the woman in the man.
I think that the bike lanes are necessary to get more people on the road and provide a safe space. There's no perfect way to do it unless you do a completely separated facility.
Well, that's a good question. So the question there was, it's good to have it, raises awareness, and it's a good place to go. Separated bike lanes, we actually build a little barrier. I thought Council ladies would be championing that and get this budget a little bit, right? So we are building it, right? The state's helping us, got one coming from the east side of town, one from the west. But as soon as they talk about one from Westville down to Edgewood Avenue from downtown, there was one coffee shop owner who was worried she was going to use the parking space and went ballistic and left the whole place up, the whole plan up for 6 months. So he's going to be parking. That's your district, Gary. What did you think when you saw about that? Do you think separated parking bike lanes might be more of an answer?
So, a couple of years ago, I was running for an office in the city, and I was asked a question. Yeah, well, you remember that. I was asked a question about separated bike lanes, and I thought it made a lot of sense to me. I recognize the difficulty that some people have been having, but if we're thinking about safety, I think a physical barrier, even if it's a small one, does a lot for the safety of those people who are in that lane. It's easy to think of a payment line on the side on the street and say, well, I need to move over here, or not even realize that you moved over accidentally. And a turning thing happens to be a problem that I've experienced. We were talking earlier about Lindy, who's in the suburb, was talking about people having LEDs on their bike, and and some people who choose not to have those lights and LEDs on their bike. And what happens at night in the city, there are a lot of riders that are trying to be careful of their space, but sometimes it's difficult. And I think those physical lanes would help with things like that in ways that we don't naturally do.
And I do want to repeat, this is a success story we're building on. I mean, the study said, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, I think we have the highest participation rate of people biking to work, and it's not just yuppies of all income levels in any other city in New England. So the question is, how do we take it to the next step? So in addition to separated bike lanes, another project that we're working on in the city is bike share. You know what that is? Like, since that was sort of one thing that we could all think like Bloomberg did right in New York, maybe, where, you know, maybe screwed up with other things, where you can get a bike, sign up, you can ride it from one place to another location and keep it there. And then, you know, just leave it there and get something later. One issue, we talked about bringing that to New Haven. One issue that's been brought up is whether the participation in that program skews the wealthier and whiter, and whether some of those measures aren't really mass transit or for the greater. Any thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm glad you went there because I was going to try to figure out how to get to that conversation. But you know, for all the success of biking in the city of New Haven, we know this is not a conversation that touches everybody.
But you know what, on the biking, Gary, I'm not sure you're right about that. But who actually rides a bike, as opposed to who speaks up about biking, who has the LED lights and the helmets. I see a lot of people biking in all the neighborhoods.
Yeah, I see a lot of people biking, but if you look at I think if you really step back and take a look at the majority of the people biking, and it's not just me, the majority of the people biking, majority of people who engage in these conversations, majority of people who all do the things we're doing are not over in the neighborhoods that we talk about. Where we talk about the wrong end of.
So I think you and I both like debate here, because we're doing it all anecdotally. I think we totally agree about who speaks up and who has a political clout. I'm just doing a visual observation and biking around, whether it's immigrant neighborhoods. Doug, is there any data on that? Because you guys do this survey every year of who's biking. Is there any data to back up sort of who's biking in New Haven? Does it skew toward people with more needs? Does it skew racially to white people?
Well, that's accurate data. Because it's in the recent report. It's in the recent report, and the NAACP has a strong report on urban watertime and access to jobs.
So we don't know the answer. I know pizza. Joe?
Yeah, well, in my business as a street corner repairman, I see mostly students who are riding, but every year there's more and more people who are working in town who want to ride their bikes, but they're intimidated by getting out on the street and mixing it up. There's a growing number of people who think that driver's education should begin in the school system, taught maybe at the junior high level, so that everyone learns driver's education as a bike rider. So then
You're talking about car driver or bike rider?
bike riders. So then later on, of course, many of them will become drivers, but everyone will have learned driver's education as a bike rider. And that way we can eliminate this, adverse relationship between riders and bikers, because everyone will have learned as a bike rider and understand the rights and responsibilities of everyone using the road.
I want to open up more to what people here have to say about it. I just want to ask the final question. I want to pose it to Doug. Are we arguing about last year's transit system here tonight? We're about to move to self-driving cars. Google's developing them. They're going to be on the market. We're probably going to get to an era where it's not just Uber. There's going to be lots of people are going to get places without needing to own a car, or having a very small car with no human being driving it, coming to take you somewhere, theoretically pretty cheaply. Will that change the whole argument about cars versus bikes versus cars? Is the whole mode of transportation changing the way that it might be efficient and environmentally sound and cost effective? To just have everybody be sprayed around by Google, scares me to death.
Well, I think what is not going to go away is we're where do these investments get made first? Where do these investments get made best? And I think that is something we've learned over the last generations and iterations of transportation in America, are that if you're well connected and powerful, as Gary mentioned, you will see that you will be taken care of if you lobby appropriately and effectively. So I think from our perspective in the transportation world is, how do we get to that next generation of technology and transportation while making sure that we bring everyone with us? The City of New Haven, as you mentioned in the outset, is embarking upon a grant application for a Smart City Challenge at the US DOT. We encourage everyone in the room to take out your phone and go to smartcitynewhaven.org, sign the open letter, asking for people to sign on in support of Mayor Hart's application on a Smart City Challenge. But I think from our perspective inside City Hall, we're really planning on 10 to 15 years left of privatized car ownership, and I think personally it might only be 5.
So you think most people aren't going to own a car in 5 to 10 to 15 years?
I know I will not, unless my 1998 RAV4 survives that much longer.
What are we mostly going to do? Are we mostly riding a bus, or is Google just going to even know is Google going to even know we're going to ride, or are they in fact going to tell us when to ride so we have to buy the products from their advertising?
Well, hopefully the advertising pays for the ride, just like Google search engine, but I think most of us are going to be taking an efficient network of micro-transit that feeds into a mass transit system. The one thing that a lot of driverless models show is that when a Criterion Cinema lets out, Star Wars Episode 7, you just can't have 500 micro vehicles picking people up because my traffic signals are still not going to let you do it. That means that mass transit is still going to have a very big play in the future of our transit.
Was anyone taking mass transit home from that Star Wars film?
I walked home.
Weren't they all going to the garage?
With a $2 discount at Park New Haven, you too can go to the garage.
Now, the other question was, what are we going to do with all these garages when they have 5 or 10 years?
That would be a great question for this panel over here. Any garage we build now must be ready to be converted into a higher and better use.
Double seat garages, there's some wacky things you can do with that.
Art space.
Art space. Well, any other thoughts? What do people here think that Doug should be doing if we're going to get money from the federal government plan, how we're going to transportation years out? What do you think we need to be doing to get to that goal of making a city where you can bike more, or walk more, or ride share? You have a hand up there? So you're admitting
Taxis. They keep you from owning a car. They're convenient. Why design those
And so the person here is saying we should incorporate taxis into our strategy. Are you thinking Uber type taxis?
Specifically, it doesn't have to be for-profit. It doesn't have to be mechanism, but the idea of a for-hire vehicle.
Any other thoughts about what it takes to get you to bike or drive more?
I'd be happy that there's a panel response.
Okay, any thoughts on the taxis?
Yeah, just one thought about what to do with parking garages if we move towards different kinds in the future, actually. Let's say the air rights garage, which will come to the end of its life in 5, 10, or 15 years, there's already structural issues that you can see. An open concrete structure doesn't last forever. If you created a transit district in that area that really meant that you could get, let's say, a streetcar, high-quality transportation moving through there, you could be in a position where you could say that the hospital or the med school could expand into that space. And it would take pressure off the hill neighborhood to the west, where the hospital has traditionally kept expanding into and allow that neighborhood to grow back to a sustainable size, politically, commercially, socially. So the benefits that could come to the city of the whole, to have a rational plan of expansion for a major institution, to help a neighborhood rebuild itself in a strong way, are just so enormous. But one thing about cars and Uber and the electric vehicles in the future that's important to remember in the mix is that electricity is generally produced with fossil fuels. So it may be clean locally if we're importing electricity from far away, but it's still using fossil fuels. And also they still take up a lot of space. So you still need to put the cars somewhere. So the more we can still reduce that by building a very high quality transportation system, it's better.
Okay, Gary, you want to say something?
So while we were talking, Doug was trying to find some data, and I was following my Twitter to see if it popped up. So there's a sheet that I believe it was Urban Data put out that says who benefits from complete streets in the city of New Haven, has a racial breakdown of residents in New Haven who work. If you look under it, you have white, non-Hispanic. The number there is 21,999, and those of that number, 1,312 are bikers. If you look at black, any ethnicity, you have 18,558, I believe, somewhere in the state. And of that number, 371 are bikers. Hispanic of any race, 13,212, and of that number, 338 are bikers. So I think that goes towards the question you were asking.
So you're saying the use shows that the use is still skewed toward whiter and more. Now, Cindy Johnson was basically, I saw he was tweeting, he's claiming that bicycle survey data is very unreliable. What I'm thinking about is immigrants, because I think I see a lot of people in immigrant neighborhoods who are biking. And I don't know if that's being caught in the data or not. I don't know, what's your take, Doug, when you were looking up?
The conversation is on the ACS, the American Community Survey, and how challenging it is to reach our populations in all of that survey. However, look at those numbers. That's different. 6 to 1, 5 to 1.
Wow, so Gary's
Or
point
4 to 1,
is
sorry.
Gary's point is definitely right. So what do we do about that?
Well, here's one thought about physical planning. Bike lanes are not, there's not as many of them in, let's say, Fairhaven or the Hill. And it could be interesting to gather data and compare, for instance, Fairhaven, the Hill, and say New Paltz. Because another thing I would guess is that because, let's say, a kid wanted to go to the downtown library branch from Congress Avenue, I think the path through the medical school across what's still essentially a highway, I bet that both the kid and their parents would be more intimidated about saying to a kid, go ahead and ride your bike downtown, than someone that even lived in New Paltz. So it'd be interesting to find out the breakdown based on physical characteristics in different neighborhoods, if that was possible.
Any thoughts on that, Cindy?
It would be interesting actually to have this conversation with our residents. So Doug, if you want to come into the neighborhoods, we could have this with the residents. But I think one interesting thing about the gentleman over there was education in school. Well, if you think about it, some of our families that are in the neighborhoods, the kids don't have bikes. Some of them have, but the other ones they can afford bikes. So Black and Hispanic, most of our residents, that can be one of the problems, and one solution could be that in schools, back in they can learn, and they can also learn the safety issues, because in the neighborhoods, if I see kids in bikes, they don't have helmets.
Doug, so what do you come up for us there, Doug?
Again, back to the conversation about the ACS and our census data being very challenging. The NAACP with our regional partners at Scrog and written by Connecticut Data Haven and our partners at the job training facility they surveyed our community of unemployed and our NAACP community, showing a much higher rate of folks who take bicycles to work and to job interviews. Now, what's very important about that is most likely folks will take, from what I remember the conversation being, people will take a mixture of bus and bike to work the first few weeks, but they're trying their best to switch to an automobile once they're more situated. I think that's it.
This gives me an exact opposite picture from the other data we got. The other data was 6 to 1. Here you're saying that people in this group are more likely to bike than to drive. Can you explain? Yes?
Hi everyone, my name is Carla Edgewood Drag. Here, I'm actually here for the Cornell Scott House Center, but I am a member of the board for the NAACP. And I was very involved in recruiting organizations for the survey that was done. So I can tell you that actually Cornell Scott participated, there were reentry service providers that participated, Community Action Agency participated, and I happen to know a lot of the people that participated that were trying to utilize bicycles and walking. And the challenge, really, Sayla, you spoke to it, is, there's not a lot of money. I know that one particular reentry program through Clemens House paid for a significant number of bicycles for individuals who had no other way to get to work because there wasn't a bus line. Challenges with individuals who are working on the highway, so there are jobs that are coming up, up in service areas unidentified. People get there.
Why are the bikes more expensive than cars?
They're not, but if you don't have $100, you don't have $100. And it's just that. Now, I really was encouraging this young lady to talk about her program, and I will do that. I think it takes thinking outside the box to really expose children and coming together to really kind of put some money into what you're saying will work. So I'm going to force you to talk about your program.
I'd love to. Yeah, so in May is going to be New Haven Bike Month, which is a celebration of biking culture. And but in particular, what it is a celebration of neighborhoods. And I think speaking to what we were just talking about before, I think one thing that we've really heard through organizing for this is that there are lots of neighborhoods who don't get enough attention from the major biking communities. Here, for example, I'm working with, I think, is Nadine here? What's up? Actually, Nadine, you should honestly talk. Nadine's from the Whaley Edgewood Beaver Hills neighborhood, which is a neighborhood that squeezes in between downtown and Westville. And we're planning an amazing event with their neighborhood, the first biking event ever really to take place in that neighborhood. I'd love for you to talk about it.
Put me on the spot. To pick up on something that Harry was saying, Sarah was saying as well, is if you want to know what's going on in the neighborhood and why biking or mass transit is an issue for the residents in the neighborhood, come talk to the residents in the neighborhood. Don't hold it. Well, this is great. This is my first time here, but I can tell you there's a lot of people who can't be here. So if you want to know what's going on, go to Waldo, go to Whaley, go to the Hill, go to where they are. They will tell you they want to do this, but they can't. So the biking event that Carolyn talked about is for the first time ever in our neighborhood, which is a mixed neighborhood. So we have parts of our neighborhood that are skewed wealthier, whiter, and then parts of the neighborhood more towards where I live, which are more Black, Hispanic, some Indian, some Asian. So we're going to have a biking event for the first time ever. I grew up in that neighborhood, we never, ever had something. So, but we reached out. So like Gary was saying, you have to make the effort. If you want this, you have to make the effort to do it. So I got in touch with Caroline. I brought a few friends with me. One of my co-chair, and we said we want to do this in the neighborhood, so let's do it. So we're going to do it. And we're going to focus on things in our neighborhood, like getting. We're going to have somebody from the Delegate here who's going to talk about all the contributions that Black
So I hope the next time we have something like this, I see a lot more in here. But I also hope that the next time we do something like this, you put out in the neighborhood. Don't just do it down here. Do it out in the neighborhoods. I mean, I'm personally trying to turn people out for it, but do it where they are. If you want to fix the problem, do it where they are.
I do think that, we started out with how broken our bus system is, but I like that we're ending up with all the good things happening with bikes. Did you have a closing statement there?
No, I just want to say something about the data. I think that NAACP, I think your surveys on relatively small. It looked like there were about 230. So that may be the reason why it's so different. But that also, the conversation I briefly had with Doug speaks to the issue of having good data. And I think it should encourage us to go out and get good data. Because I think if we have good data, as good as that survey was, I think you find numbers that are more likely to line up with the first survey.
Does anyone want to give a closing point officially? What's the smartcitynewhaven.org?
SmartCityNewHaven.org.
SmartCityNewHaven. Oh, one last point.
One of the things that's the issue is in transit, that the transit side, reliability is one of the most important things. And there's been tons of studies that have been done saying, the more reliable the data, the real-time data is, the better the ridership is. So I've had discussions with a lot of people at the DOT, especially Mike Sanders, who's the transit chief now. And in the last capital plan, DOT budgeted some amount for GPS systems on processing. I believe you're about or maybe a decade behind most of the transit systems in this country, but coming back to what Doug was saying about reliability, I think it's very right, moving forward in the right step. So it'd be interesting to see how much better transit systems get when we have real-time information. Because the Rail Transit, for example, has an app and a real-time system, and it gives people that sense of confidence that they will get to from point A to point B in time, and there are lots of things that are linked to that. For the CD Transit, we don't have that yet, but I think that will be coming in the next few months. And I think on the bike side, one point I want to make is that building a bike lane versus cars, they're not binary. So, it's not like we should have one or the other. It's just this, just the synergy between the systems that needs to be worked out. And I think driver education, early education in schools, like someone made a point, like early education in schools makes a huge difference. And mostly driver education is just awareness about how you drive in the city, how to do the things in the law. So that makes a huge difference.
All right, I just want to say finally.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone who came tonight. We had a Transportation on Tap survey on the Twitter feed. Check it out and fill it out for us. Make sure you sign up and follow GoNHGo on Twitter and our website. And just want to say thank you so much and give a big round of applause for our panelists tonight. Thank you. Special thanks to our partners, Adam Marchand, Ward 25, David Reyes, Ward 5 was here earlier. Special thank you to our friends at the state who have joined us this evening, and to all of those who came tonight. We'll see you at the next Transportation on Tap. Thank you.